There's a certain kind of silence that arrives in the evening. Not just the absence of noise, but a deep, settling stillness that fills the corners of the room. The television is off, the phone doesn't ring. Outside, the world grows dim. And inside, something begins to stir. For many older adults, this is the time when the weight of the day begins to shift inward, when the distractions fade and all that remains is yourself, your breath, your thoughts, and a kind of quiet that doesn't always feel peaceful. You may sit alone at the kitchen table, the cup of tea warm in your hand, but your heart strangely distant. You may glance at a photo and suddenly you remember a time when this room was filled with laughter, with voices, with life. But now, in the evening light, you hear only the clock ticking. And for reasons you can't quite name, you feel a heaviness settle in your chest. It's not depression exactly. It's not loneliness in the way you used to define it. It's more like a soft ache, a quiet sorrow that visits when the sun begins to set. A sadness that seems to come from nowhere, but also from everywhere. You're not imagining it, and you're certainly not alone. Many people over 60, 70, even 80 experience this same pattern, feeling more emotional, more reflective, more vulnerable as evening falls. But why? What is it about this time of day that touches something so deep inside us? That's the question we begin to explore now. Not to fix it, not to push it away, but to understand it, to move through it gently, and maybe, just maybe, to learn how to turn this soft sadness into something sacred. It's not just in your mind. There are real, physical, emotional, and psychological reasons why sadness tends to show up more often in the evenings, especially as we age. Let's begin with the most basic, biology. As the sun goes down, your body naturally produces more melatonin, a hormone that prepares you for sleep. But melatonin doesn't just make you drowsy. It also slows down your thinking, your movement, your emotional defenses. Your brain enters a quieter, more sensitive state. You begin to feel more. You begin to remember more. And sometimes without warning, you begin to ache, not in the body, but in the heart. And then there's the shift in daylight. We don't always realize how deeply we depend on natural light to keep us energized, focused, and stable. When the light fades, so does our sense of structure. The boundaries between past and present begin to blur, and the mind often drifts backward. This is especially true for older adults whose days may no longer be filled with tasks, meetings, or caretaking. When evening arrives, so does the space where memory lives, where silence lives, where feelings once tucked away during busy hours come back up to the surface. Psychologists have a term for this, sundowning. It's more commonly discussed in dementia care, but even without cognitive decline, many seniors experience a natural dip in mood, energy, and emotional resilience as night approaches. It's not a failure, it's not a weakness, it's simply how the human body, especially an aging one, processes rhythm, time, and change. And sometimes it's not even about biology at all, it's about absence. The absence of sound, the absence of conversation, the absence of things once so familiar, you never imagined they could be gone. Evenings used to be full, with cooking, with grandchildren, with laughter. Now, they are quiet, still. And that stillness can feel heavy when you don't know what to do with it. But here's something important to remember. This sadness doesn't mean you're broken. It means you are human. It means you carry stories. It means you have loved deeply, and that somewhere inside you, those echoes still live. And while the evening may bring them forward in ways that feel painful, it also offers something else. A doorway, an invitation. A gentle moment to ask, what is this sadness trying to show me? Because behind every feeling, even the heavy ones, there's a message. Evenings have a way of opening doors you thought were closed. You sit in the same chair you've sat in for years. You look out the same window. But something in the quiet, something in the golden softness of dusk, stirs a memory. And suddenly, you are no longer in the present. You are back in the kitchen with your mother, laughing at something only the two of you understood. You are back in the garden, hearing the footsteps of a child who is now grown and far away. You are back at a dinner table where someone you loved still had a seat. Even if those memories are beautiful, they carry a strange weight, because the people, the voices, the life they represent are no longer right here. And so the memory, though precious, hurts. This is something many people don't talk about, how even joyful memories can make us feel lonely. Not because we regret them, not because we would change them, but because they remind us of what was and what no longer is. And the older we grow, the more memories we carry, the more echoes we hear when the house grows quiet, the more we long not to go back, but to be seen, to be held, to feel connected in the way we once did. Some evenings, these memories visit like friends. Other nights, they visit like ghosts, and you may not know how to welcome them. So you sit with them in silence, letting them rise and fall in your chest, letting your eyes fill quietly with tears, not because you are weak, but because you are alive. Grief doesn't always come in waves. Sometimes it drips slowly, softly with every sunset. And if you feel this, if your heart grows heavy when the sky turns orange, know that you are not broken. You are remembering, and that is sacred. You are feeling, and that is beautiful. And in the space between sorrow and silence, there is still something tender waiting. The chance to hold yourself gently, the chance to honor all that has been without being crushed by it. Because memory doesn't only bring sadness, it brings wisdom. It reminds you of how much you've lived, how much you've loved, and how deeply your heart is still capable of connection. By the time the evening arrives, your body has already been through a full day, even if you didn't do much in the eyes of others. Because aging is a quiet kind of work. Your heart beats harder to keep up. Your joints carry more than they used to. Your digestion slows, your muscles ache a little longer, and your energy, well, it doesn't always last the way it once did. And so, when the sky begins to darken, your body sends a message: I'm tired. But here's what often goes unnoticed. When the body grows tired, the mind becomes more vulnerable. Your mental defenses lower. The positive thoughts that helped you through the day begin to fade into the background. And the quieter ones, the worries, the doubts, the old losses, rise to the surface. This isn't a flaw. It's a natural rhythm. And in older age, that rhythm becomes more pronounced. You may notice you feel more sensitive at night, emotionally tender, easily overwhelmed, or suddenly anxious about things you didn't think about during the day. Why? Because your brain and your body are deeply connected, especially in moments of transition, like the shift from day to night. When your body winds down, your mind no longer has tasks to distract it. There are no errands, no visitors, no appointments, just space. And if that space isn't gently filled with warmth, with care, with music or connection or softness, it can fill with shadows. This is even more true if you're not sleeping well. Because lack of sleep doesn't just affect energy, it affects mood, it affects memory. It makes small worries feel big, and loneliness feel heavier than it is. Even hunger or poor nutrition can add to this weight. If your body is low on key nutrients, like magnesium, B vitamins, or omega-3s, your brain can't regulate mood the way it needs to. And so evening sadness becomes not just emotional, but biochemical. And then there's the absence of connection. As we get older, our circle often grows smaller. Friends pass away, family members move on, the phone rings less, and slowly, the evening becomes not just quiet, but empty. But here's the truth. You are not too old to need comfort. You are not too old to need softness, conversation, light, or laughter. And you are not too old to create a new kind of evening, one that doesn't drain you, but gently restores you. Sometimes we don't realize we've built little rituals around sadness, not on purpose, not because we want to feel bad, but because in the stillness of age we forget how much our habits shape our feelings. It begins with silence, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that grows too thick, too empty, where no music plays, no voice breaks the hush, no laughter echoes from the hallway. You may turn on the news, not because you want to, but because it fills the room with sound. And yet, most of what it brings is conflict, worry, fear. Stories that pull your emotions down just as your spirit is already growing tender with fatigue. You may eat dinner alone, not at a table, but standing in the kitchen or on the edge of the bed, not noticing what you're eating, not tasting, really, just filling space. And with each lonely bite, your mind drifts further away from connection and deeper into the ache. Then there's the scrolling. Endless images, messages, fragments of lives you're not part of. Sometimes you see photos of people smiling, celebrating, gathering, and you wonder quietly if they ever feel this way too. Or maybe you don't do anything at all. You just sit in a dim room with nothing to do and nowhere to go. You tell yourself you're resting, but inside your thoughts begin to spin, and sadness seeps in through the cracks. These patterns don't come from weakness, they come from routine. From years of doing what felt easiest, not always what felt kindest. But here's the beauty of this realization. Anything learned can be unlearned. Any habit, even one soaked in loneliness, can be slowly reshaped into something healing. What if your evening began not with silence, but with a favorite song? What if dinner became a moment of ritual, with candles, a warm drink, and your own company honored, as if you were a guest in your own home? What if you replaced the news with a story that lifted you, or a phone call that reminded you that your voice still matters? These small changes may seem trivial, but to a heart that is aching for connection, they are acts of nourishment. They are how we begin to say, I deserve to feel held, even when I'm alone. And you do. You are allowed to create joy at dusk. You are allowed to let light back in, even if the sun is going down. In the next part, we'll explore how to move through evening sadness, not by fighting it, but by walking with it, hand in hand, toward something softer. One of the greatest misunderstandings about sadness is that it must be eliminated, fixed, cured, pushed away. But the truth is, some sadness doesn't want to be erased. It simply wants to be seen, especially in the evening when your heart is more open, your memories are closer, and your body is quietly asking for gentleness, not resistance. So instead of fighting the sadness that arrives with the setting sun, what if you tried something else? What if you walked with it? What if you said, I see you, you're here again tonight. You're allowed to stay, but I will choose how we spend this evening together. Because here's what sadness fears the most. Not light, but attention. When you name it, when you allow it to sit beside you without shame, it begins to soften. It becomes less of a shadow and more of a companion. Not all sadness is a sign of brokenness. Sometimes it's just the soul's way of stretching, of processing all the love it once held and all the things it still misses. So how do we walk with sadness without letting it consume us? We create rhythm. We anchor the evening with small acts of care, a warm bath with calming oils, soft lighting in the room, a prayer, a poem, or a few slow stretches while the kettle boils. We give sadness a place to rest, but not the whole house. We speak gently to ourselves. I'm allowed to feel this. I've carried many things in this life. This feeling is one of them. And tomorrow, the sun will rise again. And sometimes the most healing thing we can do is to turn sadness into something shared. A voice message to a friend, a page in a journal, a memory spoken aloud, even if no one else is there to hear it but us. Because sadness is never the problem. It's the silence around it that becomes unbearable. But once it has space to breathe, once it is honored instead of hidden, it often transforms into gratitude, into tenderness, into peace. And in that peace, you may discover something quietly miraculous, that the same heart that feels sadness so deeply is also the heart that can heal, that can hope, that can hold the night without fear. What if evening didn't have to be the hardest part of your day? What if, instead of sadness and silence, you could gently shape this time into something softer, something sacred? You don't have to fill every moment with noise or people. You don't have to pretend you're not feeling what you feel. But you can begin to create an evening that welcomes you, instead of one that leaves you behind. It starts with intention. Not big changes, not new routines, just small, loving acts of care offered to yourself. Maybe you light a candle at the same time every night, not because it solves anything, but because it reminds you, this is my space, my time, my breath. Maybe you play soft music, something that soothes, not distracts. Maybe you prepare a warm drink and drink it slowly, as if keeping company with your own heart. Maybe you take 5 minutes to step outside and look at the sky, noticing how even the sun doesn't rush to leave. It fades slowly, like a memory, like the kind of goodbye that still holds love. And most of all, maybe you speak kindly to yourself at the close of day. I did what I could today. It's okay to feel a little heavy. Tomorrow I begin again. Because the truth is this, you are not alone in feeling this way. So many others are sitting in similar rooms, facing similar feelings, wondering if something is wrong with them, when really, something is simply asking to be tended. Your heart, your memories, your changing rhythm. And no matter your age, you are allowed to begin again, to shape this part of life with beauty, with intention, with softness. Evenings don't have to be empty. They can become your most sacred time. A time of reflection, of warmth, of quiet healing. Not a place where sadness lives, but a place where you come home to yourself. If this message resonated with you, if you've ever felt that ache in the evenings and didn't know what to call it, you're not alone. And your story matters. Feel free to share in the comments. What helps you feel more peaceful in the evening? What small rituals bring you comfort? And if you'd like more videos that speak gently to the season of life you're in, we invite you to subscribe to Golden Pathways. Here, every feeling has a place. And your journey, even on quiet nights, is always seen, always honored, and never walked alone.